We saying YouTube back again with another response video. So, hoping you lots had a look at the video that we had before, which was, we just dropped on Monday, which was male desires versus female emotions. So obviously went out there, much different energy than the last time we went out there. And I'm only thinking it was because the question this time was much more, I would call it much more difficult, right? But it was good anyways. Either way, it was good to get the responses of the people and, you know, much love and appreciated for all the people that got involved. But it was really interesting to see the reaction, should we say, of coming from males and females. You know, it's a tough question whether male desires and female emotions, which one is harder. I would possibly, I don't know myself really, I don't know, but you know what, the main question, the point of it wasn't really which one was harder, because we know both of them are tough. But the main point was the fact that, you know, in society, you know, we always accept, I think as society, we accept female emotions and them sometimes struggling with handling that. But for male desire, there is no acceptance, there's no empathy. I just feel that we should just be a bit more equal in terms of what we want and what we're willing to give out as well. You know, because we can't really ask for understanding when it comes to emotions, and then when when it's the other thing, which is desire, there's no understanding. You know, like I said in the video, men lead with desire and females lead with emotion. Doesn't mean men don't have emotions, because I know sometimes it can seem that way, but it just means that we just kind of put more of that in the background, whereas females lead with the emotions and, you know, their desires come a close second, I believe so. You know, it's not far apart. But the main thing is, you know, I do believe that females can control their desires much more than males. If you think about when a male has been growing up from when he's young, you know, his aim is always to go out there and go and get the girl. He's playing a numbers game, you know, like throwing a dart in the darkness and then just hoping to kind of hit something. So, you know, for him, it's always been kind of, the desire has always been kind of part of the chase. Females aren't exactly going out there and chasing guys. More time, guys are doing the chasing. I'm gonna try and do things where we're trying to, you know, I'll try and use bits of the questions video and kind of add them in here, just so you guys can understand, because sometimes not everybody's got to watch the main video, but I still advise everyone to watch the video regardless. There was an older lady that that I spoke to, and when I, you know, asked her the question about males and females, although she did agree it was females' emotions was much harder to control, I think she was much more empathetic when I explained to her about male desires, and I really could see that there was a bit of an understanding from her, and she even had a good response in terms of kind of flipping that and saying that men should be much more open, especially touching onto the emotions kind of thing. We are always aware of females having up and down emotions, and we've pretty much accepted that as a society, but I don't think society has accepted a man's desires as being something natural to him, would you say? And sometimes when he may mess up and he may not be able to, you know, keep up with it, as sometimes females do with emotions, the man probably won't get the same shoulder to cry on as maybe, say, female. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so, and that's kind of, and I'm glad that you said it, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do with young men should express their emotions much more. Even though society doesn't encourage
they definitely should.
They really should.
Yeah.
But
a lot of men struggle with that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Do you think it's partly because of society, the old school action man, you've got to be provider, you've got to look ripped, you've got to do everything, and also females' tick list for men sometimes, do you feel, can be a little bit unrealistic for what a man has to, for the reality of men out there?
Yes. Yeah. I think men struggle to express their emotions. They struggle, certainly in my experience, struggle to talk, to communicate, to actually tell you what's actually going on in their minds. And women are emotional creatures, or can be, so you know, that can cause arguments sometimes, right?
You know, it was really refreshing to hear that, because, you know, I didn't really feel, I felt that she really did understand what the situation that we have, and it was positive. It was positive. Now on the flip side of that, when I spoke to the other three ladies, and they were much younger. So given that we kind of agreed that it is harder with emotions, and I do agree as well, why do you think in society they don't actually acknowledge a man's natural desires and how hard it is going to be for him to control that? But for a female emotion, we all acknowledge. No. But I mean, just generally in a female.
Sometimes you can't control your emotions.
No, I know, but
your desires.
no, you can't. No, you see, remember, men lead with their desires. So if we lead with something, then we can't control it less than you. We can control our emotions because we don't lead with our emotions.
That's what you want.
No, I know, but
an emotion, you can't help how you feel.
I know, but remember, it doesn't matter what it is. It's what we lead with, and it's natural. It's an action that is both natural, right? And if we have to do both actions that is natural, that comes natural to you, then we have to appreciate that it's harder for you to hold your emotions, and it also is harder for us as males to kind of hold our desires because that's what we lead to. But society does not give a man a break for that. Could we agree? They expect him to have already civilized himself and disciplined himself with his desires. But nobody expects a female to have...
There's nothing wrong with acting on your desire if this other party is fine with you acting on your desire. You know what I mean?
But that never is the case.
You said society doesn't give women a break. That's not true, because if a woman reacts by emotion, she gets called crazy straight away. So I think that's also wrong.
Yeah, I understand that, but would we agree that women, out of men and females, which one gets more emotional support from society?
Oh, absolutely, female.
Okay, so that's my point. This is the thing. I try not to pick and choose too much. I just try and do it in a general form because I'm trying to advise young people. So when I'm trying to advise young people, I try and give them a realistic idea of what the world is, not what we would like it to be.
Yes, you're right, a man should, and he should have that platform, and we don't, and that is something we should work on, but it's not comparable to his desire. If you want to compare a woman's emotions to a man's emotions, then yes, that is a problem. Let's talk about a man's emotions, but we do not compare it to a man's desire, because that is a completely different situation.
Okay. Now, if you look at that video, immediately, when I asked the question, it was, I wouldn't say they had their backup, but, it didn't seem like there was any empathy whatsoever. I don't even think that somehow they even thought about the question. It was just immediately male versus female, and it's almost like, yeah, females have got this situation. Even when I tried to explain it to them about male desire and tried to say that, because we lead with desire, it's much more harder for us with our desires. Let's just say they was not having it at all. So, and this is kind of the main points that I'm trying to, why I'm doing what I'm doing is because, I believe that male and female, both of us, we have our flaws, we do things right and we do things wrong. And sometimes, it's all good to go and point out the flaws of, the other person, but we also need to look at our own flaws. And, what I would suggest going forward, and I really advise you guys to really watch the videos, put the comments in, really try and get involved with some of the questions. And if there's any questions your own self that you would like us to kind of add in there, definitely drop it in the comments. But I do think that, when we're moving forward and we're trying to think about your possible partner, right, going forward, you want to ask this question. Let's say you're a male, right? You want to ask you're meeting a girl and you're dating or whatever. You want to hope that the female has got her emotions in check, because that's something that we should be kind of, should be looking for. It's not just good enough saying she looks good and so. Her emotions must be in check. Otherwise, it's a different kind of story, and you're going to have to deal with that, at another stage. And on the flip side, to the females, when you're hooking up with a guy, you need to go and make sure that his desires are in check. You can't just assume that, oh yeah, well, I'm hooking up with this guy. He obviously has got his desires in check. He knows how to control himself. It's kind of ridiculous to just assume that. So I think if we're kind of getting in a situation where, you're meeting the opposite sex, or you're meeting someone trying to get into a relationship, doing the dating thing, you need to make sure if they're a male, that you've kind of made sure to see if they've got their desires in check. And if it's a female, you're trying to make sure that their emotions are in check, because both of them are as important. And if either one is missing either one, I don't really see how a relationship is going to kind of blossom. So again, these questions that I put out there are important, not only for myself, for the people that I'm doing it with, I would hope for you guys, because again, thought-provoking questions, questions that you may not really ask yourself. And yeah, I hope you are just taking something in. Gonna have more questions in. There's actually a part 2 actually, because you know, we actually asked more questions on the day, but trying to kind of spoon feed it in. But yeah, we're gonna have a part 2 dropping in on Monday. But let me know what you think about, you know, these points. And like I always say, you know, there is no right or wrong answer. All I would always say is the point of these questions is, I look at it like this: are we considering the other person when we're talking about, when we have a point, you know? One main thing I keep repeating, you know, when we talk about what a good man is, I would really like to know what are a good man's flaws, you know, but we'll get into that on the next one. And what's a good woman's flaws, you know? We need to know what these flaws are, because, you know, we just have this fictitious picture of someone being so perfect. And, you know, without looking at ourselves or even inspecting them, how are we really trying to make this kind of happen? So I hope this makes sense. Weren't rambling too much, and definitely leave the comments in below. And yeah, look out for the next video. All right, peace.
Do you think women lead with emotion or desire first?
I think it depends on the person. Do you think a man leads with desire or emotion first?
Desire.
Yeah, but what, depends on the man. You
I know,
might
I'll
lead
tell
with
you, I'll tell you why
desire.
it's a man, because I'm a male, and based on all males will generally go for what they desire, which is what is hard. That's why, let's say for example, if you was to ask who find it the most hardest to be committed in a relationship?
Men.
Why is that? Because they can't control
Then
their
again, though.
because they can't control their
Yeah, but some
okay,
women.
so do you see why if
Maybe.
men struggle with that across the board, then you can understand why it's hard.